Actually, that one's fast. I don't know if we want to go by that one, just to be on.
6:28.
Oh, it's only 6:28, okay.
I'll give him a run.
Thanks, Jamie.
I picked the clock.
I set it to Apple, to Steve Jobs time.
What we're gonna do, we're gonna move,
Like that.
yes. Okay. Okay. Nope.
Hurry up and wait. There you go.
Okay. As required by law, the town may audio or video record this meeting. Any person intending to either audio or video record this open session is required to inform the chair. I call the meeting to order. There are two previous meeting minutes we need to review. October 19th. Any corrections?
I don't.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes of October 19th?
Motion to accept.
I'll second it.
Okay. And November 8th, any changes, mistakes? And do I hear
I make a
Motion.
motion that we accept the meetings from November 8th.
okay, second?
Second.
Okay. Both have passed unanimously. And we go to the Board of Health work session.
Chair, with your permission, would it be okay if we skipped to new business A, public hearing, while we have our attorney here?
Yes.
Would that be all right with you?
Yep.
You'll just need to open the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, I now opened a public hearing.
And it's Board of Health vote to rescind nutrient and fertilizer control regulation adopted January 22nd, 2021.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name's Amy Quessel. I'm with KP Law. And it came to our attention that fertilizer regulations were enacted by the Board of Health. And unfortunately, there is a state act which preempts any cities or towns from enacting fertilizer regulations. And so by the legal theory of preemption, your regulations would be, if challenged, would be found to be void, null and void. So when we found out, our recommendation is to rescind those and allow MADR to control fertilizers as they have been tasked to do by the legislature.
There was discussion last night at the Board of
At the
Selectmen.
The Board of Selectmen. I have a couple of questions on that.
Sure.
And I read through yours, I read through the 330 CMR 31, I read through chapter 262, and I read their fact sheets that they had out. My question on this would be, all right, let's say we would rescind ours. So then the town has no regulations.
Correct.
So how does that benefit controlling fertilizer if we now have no regulations? Now, wait, let me take this is the way my thought was working, okay?
Sure, no problem.
So my thought was, if we had regulations that in the beginning said it was for, all right, let me back up. a lot of what I read here appeared to me to be more for professionals, a lot of what's in here. So if we had some regulations that would basically say, I would take that off. If we would say that it would be fertilizer regulations for the homeowner, I'm just going to paraphrase this, who does not hire a professional. In other words, they're doing their own. All right? And there's a lot of people that do that. If we then took the regulations that are in this, that the state's putting out, and reference, which we have done in ours, and we could reference more, I don't know where I stuck that, referencing all the different sections, like this 330, CMR 31, and the 262, we referenced all of that and used their information as guidelines or regulations for the town people to use. I guess my concern is, I think they're defeating the purpose by saying, we can't have any town regulations because we didn't get them in time. That doesn't make any sense. And to put something like this on the website, which we do currently have, which to me is better than nothing, the homeowner is not going to go through, wherever I stuck that 330 CMR. So if we took the information out of there and followed their guidelines and referred to that as where this information is coming from, why would we not be able to use that?
So,
Am I?
I may too. Yeah. So, you can, there's no problem with you putting something on your website with regard to fertilizers, nutrient loading, things like that, referring to a fact sheet, referring people to the CMR. It's the enactment of regulations that is the issue here. That is what is at issue.
But let's say we're not enacting a regulation.
Right.
So if we, all right, so let me see, see if not being a lawyer. Okay, so if we don't make it a regulation, and we don't make it a bylaw,
Right.
and we just, I don't know how we would word it, but
Guidelines or fact sheet or.
guidelines for fertilizer regulations for the town of Harwich for people that don't use a professional landscaper or whatever, so because.
Or maybe more facts and information you need to know about nutrients, because.
Applying yourself, because
Yes, there you
I
go.
want to get something in there that's going to refer to the fact that they are going to be applying it themselves. So we could add information, whether we call it a fact sheet or whatever, and follow this and reference all of this. And at least there would be something on the town's website to guide the people, because to me, to just pull it and not have anything totally defeats the purpose of having any regulation at all. Am I making?
Well, the legislature apparently feels that the CMR is enough. But, so my recommendation tonight is to rescind the regulations. But again, I don't think that precludes, you from putting up a fact sheet about nutrient, loading and fertilizer. Same thing with regard to, say the fire department puts up something, instead of checking your smoke detectors every 6 months, we recommend you check them every 3 months.
Yeah, that's more,
You know,
as long as you're more
The CMR
restrictive.
The CMR says 6 months, but they're gonna say 3 months, actually, the CMR, but whatever it may be. But
Yeah,
you know what I'm
yeah,
saying.
right, yeah.
Or, they say 1 smoke detector per level, we're gonna, your fire department's
We're gonna
recommend
put
two.
3 or whatever, yes.
So, but it's not, here what it is, it's more the actual, regulation of the fertilizer.
They're
and,
providing the regulations that we have to
enforcement.
follow.
Yes, they are.
And so we just don't want to call it regulations, we're going to call it, we'll come up with something.
Policy, we could call it a
Policy,
policy.
a
but
policy.
It wouldn't be enforceable, that's the
Right.
only.
Yeah.
It's not enforceable.
Right. Now, with that in mind, when you say it's not enforceable, all right, that brings up the other question, because every time we come up with a policy, the thing is, how is it enforced? So, this is out there, and we're saying that the state enforces that. How do they enforce that from town to town to town? Nobody comes out and checks it. So who is responsible for making sure, or Yeah, for making sure that the town people are following these regulations.
MDAR, so.
All right, so did they send people out? And
Complaint.
I
The
just,
website does have a complaint section, so you can either call or put in a ticket, basically, and they would,
so in other words, we could
Follow
have
up on
somebody could come to the Board of Health and, or who would they go to? And say, I have a complaint because my neighbor's dropping all this fertilizer.
Usually it's the Board of Health.
And then you would forward that,
yes, and we have that on the website right now, the contact information for
All
a
right.
complaint for MDR.
all right, does that sound reasonable?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's all I have.
That's good.
That's enough, is that?
That's good.
Like I said, I just started to read, I tend to get in the weeds on things.
No, you know, there's numerous pieces of legislation in the Commonwealth that I do not agree with.
That's,
This happens to be one of them.
yes, yes. And I just found that by I don't have a problem with following what they want done. My thing was, if we pull ours, there's nothing.
Right. And as you know, there is the Home Rule Amendment of the Massachusetts Constitution, which allows cities and states to enact more stringent, bylaws et cetera, unless it comes to an act that specifically
Says that,
states that this is, there would be a preemptive issue.
so we just can't call it a bylaw or a regulation, and we can't enforce
And
it.
we can't enforce it, correct.
All right, so we could still
But
put,
I think that, I honestly think that the general public doesn't understand.
no,
With
I agree.
regard to fertilizers.
Yes.
I think that they think that, they love to see their lawns green and their hydrangeas pink one year and, blue the next year. And I don't think they have any idea how dangerous it is,
Well,
particularly for a sole source aquifer.
when I looked at this, now, and I worked with a pharmaceutical company, and we worked with the Code of Federal Regulations, all right? And most people picking that up can't read it. They wouldn't have a clue. And when I read this, I thought, yeah, I can pick my way through this. The average person, even if they looked at it, they're gonna say, I'm not gonna read this. So my thought was, we still need to provide the townspeople with some guidelines.
Agreed.
We can call them guidelines, that's another thing. Calling them guidelines as to fertilizer application. Does that?
Yes, I think so.
That sounds, all right, and so if we put that together, can we then have her look at it? or-
Sure, sure,
All right,
no problem.
okay. All right, does
It's more
anybody?
the enforcement piece,
Yeah.
All right,
that's why you need to hear.
Okay. Is
Okay.
there, public comment?
Yes, are you taking public comment?
Yeah.
Good evening, my name is Mary Albus. I'm a resident of West Harwich for the last 25 years. Good evening, and thank you for your time. I think you have a really good point here because you have a great fertilizer regulation. It was well thought out, it was well researched. I believe you voted it unanimously in. I was part of that remote meeting. And it's disappointing to now hear that you don't have a leg to stand on to enforce it because of the state laws. The Massachusetts state laws for fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides are actually pretty lax if you read them, if you take time to read them. In a state that seems to care a lot about the environment, boy, the laws are really lacking. States like New York, Vermont, they have very stringent laws about fertilizer, pesticide, herbicide application. But the good news is, I'm going to say, don't give up, because right now, before our legislature in Boston, Julian Sear has some bills there where they are trying to get it passed so that towns will have the ability to enforce stricter regulations on not just fertilizer, but herbicides and pesticides as well, okay? And that, to my knowledge, in some of the research I've done, that has passed, I believe, the House on October 12th, and now it's in sort of the next phase. So I'm here to say, don't give up on your regulation, because if that passes Boston, that becomes a law, you, the town of Harwich, will have the ability to enact your fertilizer law and to actually enforce it.
And then and enforce it. When I looked at our regulations, it was a while since I actually looked at them, basically are following what's in that 330. I think there's some things we don't have. We didn't have in about the snow and ice. We didn't have some of those things, but what is in there is coming from that. That doesn't mean we couldn't add something further and
Correct.
calling it a policy for right now. But I would, the information that you have, can you provide that to Katie on the things that are in the legislature right now? Because I
Sure,
think it would be really
think I
helpful
have,
for us
actually,
to
in an
stay
email.
up on that, because very often that's not something that you would normally follow, and then
No,
it happens and we
no.
don't know about it. But
Dr.
that would-
O'Neill and I have been in constant contact via email, and I've shared this. And this is actually in an article of the Cape Cod Chronicle a couple of weeks ago. Bill Galvin wrote a story about
think
it,
I did.
saying that he was trying to find out where the next step was
All right.
for this legislation. I couldn't find out either. It's very hard to find out on the website. But it's in the works. Julian Sear tried it 2 years ago, 2019. It failed miserably. But God bless him, he took it up again because he realizes we have this sole source aquifer out here.
I was just going to say,
And-
there's a difference between here and Boston.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There is. And if we contaminate that with the way we're going,
Done.
we're done. Not just our health,
Yeah.
but I mean, who's going to come to Cape Cod if
Yeah.
you have no drinking water?
Yeah.
So I think the time is right to act now, and I'm very happy to hear you say that. I think putting something on the website, that's terrific, and I think your attorney is correct. There are a lot of people out there who really don't understand. Like, I have a neighbor, and she has her green lawn. She lives on the banks of the Herring River. She's an environmentalist, and she said, it's fine, it's organic. And I said, well, you know what, in a lot of the research I've done, even organic fertilizer
Organic
has
is gonna have nitrogen
has
in it, and
nitrogen.
phosphorus.
All fertilizer has nitrogen. So, and she looked at me like, are you crazy? My guy told me that this was fine. So I think even little bits like that, educating the public,
Yes.
is very important. There's a lot of talk on social media now. People are starting to wake up. They really are. They're worried about what's happening to our environment. They're worried, and we should be even more worried on Cape Cod.
Well, I came from Pennsylvania where our water came from a reservoir.
Yep.
So, you could put anything on the ground you wanted. But here, and places like in countries, or when I say in a country land, where they're not getting it from a reservoir, they're getting it from wells. That's an issue.
Yes.
That is a big issue.
I agree.
So,
I live about 3 houses from the Herring River. I feel very fortunate. Bell's Neck Conservation. My neighbors and I are very concerned about the environment. In the last, 2.5 decades, I have seen the Herring River degraded. Algae, pollution, even the Conservation Commission is now trying to tighten up those regulations to protect wetlands because they realize, that they see there's a degradation of, our little Herring River. Yesterday, the day before, I went to the fish market, and bay scallops were $50 a pound. And I said to the guy, I've never seen them that high. And he said, there's no more eelgrass. There's no more eelgrass in Nantucket Sound. That's directly related to pesticides and pollution. I just have one more thing to say. I think this is wonderful. If this legislation goes through in Boston, you also will have the opportunity to regulate pesticides and herbicides, which are also very detrimental to our environment. So it's a big task, but if I would ask you to consider thinking about now some of the regulations, if you think it's important to also regulate pesticides and herbicides in this town, to also really have a plan, because if this passes, then I believe it's not just your board, I believe it would be the Board of Selectmen as well. I think, and I think if it's a bylaw, doesn't it have to go to town meeting and be voted? But I think it's an opportunity, and I think it's great to be ready to do that. And I'll just share one more thing with you. There's a property in my neighborhood, and I asked the neighbor for his typical chemical spray schedule, okay? And he was happy to share it with me, and I'll share it with you. This is a quote from him. The lawn is fertilized approximately every 6 weeks, April through October or November, which is 5 to 6 times a year. That's fertilizer. Ant sprays are once a month, May through October. Tick mosquito treatments happen 3 times a season, most likely May, June, and August. The driveway and beds will be sprayed for weeds at least once a year, May and June, and possibly again in August or September. The weed killer is glyphosate, also known as Roundup, which is now going to be banned in 2023, but only for residential use, not for commercial use. So I share that with you because this is one small property in one village of Harwich, okay? And if you do the math, this isn't half an acre, less than half an acre. It is doused with a variety of chemicals 15 to 17 times between April and November. That's one property. This is why I'm before you today, because I love Harwich, I love our environment, I love Cape Cod, and I really see it going downhill. And if this is completely legal, as long as this gentleman, his company follows the rules and the label of each of these chemicals, he is doing nothing illegal. But, it's a big but, it's a real concern. Thank you. Thanks for all you do, too.
Any comments from the board?
What's her name? What's her name?
Amy,
Which
my
one?
name or her name?
This is Amy, this is Mary.
Mary, what's your last name?
I'm Albis, A-L-B-I-S.
Thank you.
I know that.
I'm not a scientist or anything. I'm a special education teacher and just an environmentalist who really cares. I also have a group of neighbors who could not be here tonight.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments? So, the motion will be to,
Can you close the hearing before you make a motion?
oh, I'm sorry.
Unless you're
I
going to
now close the
continue.
public
You're gonna
hearing.
make a motion.
Sorry, yep. So we're going to rescind the regulation, and we decided to put out an,
I would say redo our, what do we call ours?
And you already have it on your website? You already have information on fertilizer on your
Yes,
website?
We have that, we have that,
Just direct staff to supplement that, that's it.
yeah, or we can, we were going to put on, or I was going to ask to put on those, the 2 fact sheets.
Yep, you can link those. Yeah.
These are the 2 fact sheets that came out from,
They wouldn't need a motion to do.
No,
that
no,
part.
I would just, that's administrative,
okay, all right.
to have staff supplement the
So I'll
website
put
with the
both of
fact
those
sheet.
fact sheet, I'll put the current regulation, take off regulation and change it to policy, and then add that to
And then,
the
and we
website.
can, and then I'd like to review the policy and maybe update it. You know, just go through and make sure we have all the things
Should
that
I
are in,
wait?
that are in this,
Mhm.
in the policy that we're gonna have.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, now I have no idea how she's gonna say that.
Do you want me, I don't think that has to be part of the motion, but do you want me to wait on including that on the website for now and just do the 2 fact sheets, or do you want all of them on the website now?
What do you mean by all of them?
We said we want to rework the policy.
All right, I guess my one concern would be is, I would need to go back over our regulations that we're gonna call policy to make sure that they are totally in line with what's in here. I don't think anything that we have is wrong, I just don't know that we have it all in there.
Okay, so if you are going to call it a policy, then that would have to be voted on.
Okay,
If it's just going to be information that the Board of Health is providing to the public through staff, that is an administrative act.
okay.
So,
They couldn't vote on a policy tonight, right?
no, you would have to have it in front of you, so.
Yeah, all right.
So I would vote to rescind the regulations tonight. If you, in the meantime, staff can keep information on the website.
All right,
That's
and what
a
we-
fact sheet and things like that. But then if you want to have a formal policy,
All right,
I would just
We can-
rework it and put it before the board.
that might be the way to go, where rescind it, which I think you have on already, which is this 330, and include these, because these are just summaries of what's in
Yeah.
here. And put these on, and then we could, at one of our other meetings, talk
If you
about.
wanted the next meeting, we can put on the agenda, policy discussion and vote, if you'd like
All
to
right,
do that.
all
You're
right.
not here though, right?
Oh, I'm not here. I'm not here. I'll be in Colorado
Would you like it on the next meeting?
Yeah,
in January. All right.
please, yes, please.
And in the meantime, I'll try to go through this and find out what's here that's not in ours, that if we need to add something.
Okay, great.
How's that?
We'll get that on the January.
Okay.
So we're voting on rescinding the
Regulation.
The regulations.
the regulation and putting a fact sheet up?
So I would do the first motion, and someone can just say so moved if they want to rescind the existing regulations currently in effect, the existing fertilizer regulations currently in effect.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion to rescind the existing fertilizer regulations. in effect.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And that's it for tonight, because the rest is an administrative, where, she'll keep some stuff on the website, take down the regulations, but then when a policy comes forward, you guys can look at it and vote on that.
And vote on
That's in
that.
front of you.
All right.
So I don't think you need any other motions tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put up the fact sheets and I'll link to that too.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
thank you. It was
Thank you
nice
for
meeting
coming.
you all.
I'm really glad you were here.
Thank you, thank you. Unless there's something else that you haven't said.
There is, I just want to ask if you would feel comfortable of putting some guidelines on your website about pesticides and herbicides as well?
I don't think we've addressed that yet.
We
No,
haven't-
or if you would address it at a future meeting,
We can
possibly.
do that at a future
I think a
meeting.
lot of people don't know the alternatives.
Yeah.
I don't use herbicides, but I use white vinegar to kill my weeds. It works. I think, I just urge you, I know that fertilizer is a great start, but if you would consider that down the road,
Yep.
I think a lot of residents.
If you want to email me the request, I can forward that on to get on a later agenda.
Excuse me?
If you want to forward me that request to
Certainly,
get on.
I will
can-
certainly do that by email. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I'm so glad you were, Amy, I'm so glad you were here.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Thank you for taking that out of order.
Oh, no,
Won't make me
no
miss the
problem.
whole meeting.
All right, that's, I don't know where we are. That's this I want to hold on to. All right.
So if you'd like to backtrack, we can go back either to the Board of Health work session, or you can continue on with the new business.
Why don't we do, let's go on to new business and we'll go back to,
Or would you like me to read the next one?
please.
So we have show cause hearing for 100 Route 28 Fitzpatrick. Show cause hearing to discuss noncompliance with an order issued to upgrade a failed septic system. Is there anyone here from?
Call the hearing.
So in your packet, we gave a little brief summary. About 5 years ago, this property failed the septic system and we have not received anything on the upgrade. I've recommended several conditions, including pumping within 1 week, have the owners provide a service agreement to the health department as proof of engineering engagement within 7 days of this meeting, hire a septic installer and provide copy of service agreement, within 30 days of the meeting. The complete system shall be upgraded within 45 days of application approval. Failure to comply would result in non-criminal method within the district court. And if the system hasn't been fully installed by February 1st, I recommend the water be shut off to the property.
Was this the same one that we addressed? Yeah.
Is the water shut off already?
This is actually a different one,
Oh, it is? Okay, because I was thinking it was the same one.
Okay.
another one.
Another one, okay.
But yes, the water was shut off to that one.
Okay.
Is the water shut off to this one yet?
Not yet.
What date did you give them?
I recommended February 1st if the system hasn't been installed.
Oh, wow, that's.
That's a long time.
Well, we haven't received anything from them.
Yeah,
This is a completely separate
okay.
Alright.
property.
And where are we? I for some can't find mine for whatever reason. So what all have we sent them?
So back in 2016, we sent them the failure notice. We sent them another letter on
Yeah, all right, yeah.
recently.
So,
They were given a notice of violation on August 31st of 16. On September 8th of 2016, they emailed the health department, they acknowledged the failed system, and quote the owner, "We have other projects to attend to before we install a new septic, and hope to have it completed in the next 90 days."
and that's the last we've heard. So what are our options? I mean, they're not responding.
So that's when we'll start, if you have these conditions, we can eventually start the non-criminal disposition and start fining them that way. If they don't pay the fines, we can eventually bring them to court and we can shut the water off.
Do we have to wait that long?
You don't have to wait that long, but because they haven't been necessarily under order from your board, I would put them under order again.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I see, all right.
yeah, I would be in favor of doing that, because the fact that they're not even bothering to respond.
Do we have to have 45 days? Can we have a shorter time?
You can certainly shorten it,
I'd say 30 days.
30 days.
Mhm.
And then what would you like to change the installer service agreement to? That, do you want to keep them both 30 days, or?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So the only
And
problem
if
is,
they don't respond within that 30 days, then you can start the non-criminal proceeding?
yes, so I would suggest then changing up the installer to 15 days.
Yes.
After that?
Shall be complete within 30 days of application approval.
Okay, all right, all right. Yeah,
That seem- Okay.
right, that would be my
Mm-hmm.
thought on that.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to?
And you can just say to accept the recommendation from the health director with amendments.
Okay.
Make it easy.
Okay,
Or as written with amendments.
Yeah, all right.
motion?
Motion
I
to
couldn't have this.
go along with the health director on her
Recommendation.
recommendations with
Amendment.
amendments.
I'll
Second?
second that.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, pass unanimously.
So next on this evening, we have a hearing for request of variance from the Harwich Board of Health tobacco regulations restricting the sale of tobacco products, section E10C, tobacco product permit sales, maximum number of tobacco product sales permits. So just need to open the hearing.
Okay. I now open the hearing.
Hi, my name is Badresh Patel, and I live in Yarmouth last 20 years, and I have several business in Yarmouth, Dennis, and INS. And that's my lawyer here.
Good evening,
Hello.
Chair Howell, members of the board. Attorney Matt Fitzsimmons from South Yarmouth.
Okay.
Well, thank you for hearing Mr. Patel's petition tonight. Badresh, he goes by Bob, too.
Yeah, Bob.
I've had the
nickname.
pleasure of working with Bob for almost a decade now in his locations in Yarmouth and one in Dennis, and then also a few off Cape, too. And this evening, he comes before you as a petitioner seeking a variance to request the issuance of a tobacco product sales permit. Under Section E, Bob fits by his current licensing, fits all the state requirements and permits and current licenses with the DOR and the like. In my work with Bob, it's been an opportunity to see how he manages his product, how he manages with his inventory and the suppliers that he uses to remain compliant, particularly where he's working in different towns with different regulations. That's been one of the most time-consuming and focused elements of Bob's work, is making sure that with each outfit that he's fitting within each town's regulations. I know several of you are involved in the current regulations, but what Bob is looking at by location is the 5 Main Street, old 7-Eleven on Route 28. In the current regulations, unfortunately, the license is a non-transferable scenario, and recently was closed. In asking for the variance, we're looking at the opportunity to maintain the property and improve it. That would be an element of Bob's lease for the property over the course of the next 5 years, is his ability to maintain it, make sure that, like so many locations, we deal with it so much in our neighborhood, by my office on Route 28, where an outfit is closed, and for various reasons, it sits and sits and sits. Bob's looked at it as an opportunity to, keep the property clean, keep it active, and in full respect of the nature of the town's regulations and how many licenses have been put out. I give this board my own good word on Bob's work and working with the health department on random inspections and the like. It's just been my opportunity to be able to see how he operates his other stores locally here on the Cape in particular. In meeting the Section E requirements, the other elements he would also meet as far as displays and the way he's managed his product to not have any reachable product, have it properly locked and so forth. So as far as specific to Harwich, this actually fits much within what he's managed with his other locations. The timeliness, I feel, and in working with Bob on looking at this property, is an element where we don't have a license that has been released years ago or even months ago, but in such short weeks time frame and closure of operation, we've really looked at it as an opportunity to try to maintain this location on Route 28. It's also not a residential spot. It's not, as far as location, it also, within the town here in Harwich, it's a location that fits within the commercial district as it's currently formed. So it's not as if it's a pre-existing non-conforming type of use of the property as well. It's otherwise commercial location that would fit the use. And so if any members of the board have any questions, both Bob and I are available, and we brought copies of his current licenses too. If it's a discussion that the board is entertaining, we of course would follow with all the other required documentation under Section E.
Recommendation from the,
I have some questions. I don't think anybody's questioning maybe the quality of your stores. You're looking at selling tobacco. And when we put our tobacco regulations into effect, we put a lot of time into that.
we worked very hard and
Very hard on that.
talked about
And
it a lot.
with the idea of looking at the public health. And that's why we did not want to have any more places that were selling tobacco. If we
Correct.
start giving variances here, you're going to have the next person that comes along and they're going to want a variance. And to be fair, you're almost going to have to provide them with the same thing. And now we're expanding again. And we spent all that time coming up with regulations for the public health, including the kids, to limit the amount of tobacco sales in the town. And I personally tend to want to stick with those regulations. That's my personal feeling on this at all. That has nothing to do with,
Let's hear what the health director recommends, and then we can continue.
That was my recommendation as well. I recommend denial of the variance request. All the board members here worked so hard to minimize tobacco in this town, and that the intent of the regulation that all of you worked so hard on was to eventually bring it down so there's no longer tobacco sales down the road. It's nothing to your business practices. You as a person, I'm sure you're a great business owner. We are very pro-business, but we're not pro-tobacco. So I would recommend denial.
And being part of the discussion in the past, I would have to say I'm in agreement that
yeah.
once it's done, you can't get it back.
May I say something as well?
Oh,
Are you with them or public?
John is, yeah.
My name's John Weld. I work for Kinlan Grover Real Estate, and I've been involved in many of Bob's transactions with 7-Eleven. Just to give you a quick background on the property, 5 Main Street, Route 28, West Harwich, is owned by Lanier Retail, and they're out of Burlington, Mass. We've approached them several times in the past about buying the property. They're not willing to sell the property. Just so you know, 7-Eleven, who we've dealt with several times through this woman named Heather Baresh and eXp Real Estate in Texas, 7-Eleven has a lease on that property until September 30th, 26. So if there's no ability to get a tobacco license there, which was up till 2 weeks ago operating, then what's going to happen is nobody is going to rent that as a convenience store. It may have a different use, but 7-Eleven's on the hook there for 5 years, and they could traditionally just pay the rent for 5 years and leave it vacant for 5 years, which doesn't really help because people need convenience stores as well. Just there's other things that they sell besides tobacco. And I can say that I was personally involved in Bob, subleasing the ones from 7-Eleven, both in Raynham and in Lynn. And in Chelsea, excuse me, and he also purchased the old 7-Eleven in Lynn and in East Springfield, as well as some other properties he owns around the Cape, as he told you. So the point is, the 7-Eleven was not able to transfer the license, as Mr. Fitzsimmons noted, and I believe they had a franchisee was there, and 7-Eleven is in some big flux, going through with the Speedway and all that. They don't want to have any more franchisees in there. So the only way for Bob or 7-Eleven to maintain that license would have been to, when this guy closed the business 2 weeks ago, I was in there, and Bob would have had to come in as a new franchisee and just maintain the same license that was already in place with 7-Eleven for that property. So it's not like, he's asking for a new license to go to a new place.
No, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, sir.
you know that, right?
Right.
So I'm just letting you know that building could sit vacant for 5 years if that's something that you're willing to.
All right, let me interject there or something. So basically, you're saying if you can't sell tobacco, you can't make a go of it. That's what's coming across, because it's making it sound like if we don't give you that variance to sell tobacco, then you may not do it, and that's going to sit vacant. That's what's coming across. So to me, that's saying, if I can't sell the tobacco, the business isn't viable. And I would have a problem with that. I would have a problem with that. We came up with those regulations for the strict purpose of public safety, public health. And I think that's, for me, that's where it stands. That's where it stands. That would be that's going to be my vote.
I agree.
Just in fair inquiry, just as a partly practice point too on guidance of possible ways to facilitate limited use. Has the board ever considered a narrow product line where it would not be as wide as what is allowed under the regulations, but a narrow portion, perhaps those that are not, products
Like I
that
said,
are
we start doing variances for one person in one
No
situation.
tobacco,
Understood.
period.
It just goes on and on and on, and then why have your regulations? If we are constantly, every time somebody comes before us giving a variance, then there's no point in having that regulation. In this particular regulation, it is for the public safety, public health. So,
It's nothing personal. It's
no,
just-
absolutely not.
I just wanted to
Absolutely
ask,
not.
just in case it was something that, but we understand, in respect too.
Can I just say one more thing, just briefly? I don't represent 7-Eleven, but what's happening in a lot of these towns, such as like Brockton and other towns, 7-Eleven has a store, they sublease it from an owner. A lot of times they're absentee owners, they live in Florida, they live out of the area, and the different towns change the regulations, but they never notify the owner of the property or the business that's in there. So 7-Eleven had no idea that there was any limitation on tobacco licenses, or I think they would have acted differently. I'm just letting you know that.
For point of clarification for the board, every single owner was notified of the
Yeah,
regulation
I think, I was
change.
going to say, I think the owners were, when that went through. So they were notified,
Well, according to 7-Eleven, they said they didn't know anything
Well-
about it, so that's all I know.
yeah. Well, when you look at corporations, a lot can get lost in the weeds.
Of course.
So my recommendation is to basically not allow the tobacco use.
I agree. Is there any other public comments? Okay. Do I hear,
So you'll need to
well,
just
we don't do a
close,
motion, so
if you're gonna make a vote, we'll just need to close the public hearing.
I close the public hearing, yep. And there's no vote?
Oh, you'll vote on it, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You'll just
Okay.
have to list a reason for the denial, if that's your vote, or,
So I would say that we're voting that we are going to remain in, as previously, that once a tobacco permit has been rescind or whatever it's called, that we do not issue a new one.
We're going to follow the regulations that we put
Yeah.
into effect.
so the motion would just say, you make the motion to deny the variance request.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Do I hear a
because of
motion?
your existing tobacco regulations in place in order to protect public health.
Okay.
Okay. After I'm saying, yeah, okay, okay, wow, let me try this again. So we are, say that again. Is
So,
that
did Pam make the motion, or are you making it now? Just for, I just want to make sure it's
I think we're
recorded.
making the motion now, am I correct?
You're making the motion now,
Yes.
yeah.
I recommend denial of the variance request. The tobacco regulations were put into place to minimize the number of locations that sell tobacco in order to protect public health. The regulations state that each surrendered permit be permanently retired, and I recommend the regulations be upheld.
Second, okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. I'm sorry, it's
Yes.
really not personal.
Thank you for entertaining the petition.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can keep going.
I couldn't find it before. I was looking for something else. All right. Okay.
Would you like to do my report, or would you like to go back up to the work session?
So let's do the report
The
first.
report, okay. Sorry, my papers are all out of order now.
So am I. I had them all over the place.
I apologize. Okay, so we still remain our weekly calls with the state every Tuesday afternoon. Vaccines are now available for children ages 5 to 11. We will be hosting a clinic at the elementary school on December 1st from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., which is an online registration. We're partnering up with the Barnstable County nurse. She'll be supplying all the vaccine. Jen has taken the task of the license renewals have all been sent out, so we always say thank you, Jen. It's a lot of work. A lot of work in a short amount of time. So those have gone out last week, and the reminder will go out soon. Everyone
Have
will
there
have.
been any reported side effects with the children?
Not that I've heard yet. That doesn't mean that it's not on
Mm.
theirs, but I have not heard yet.
Yeah, I hadn't heard. Okay.
Anything from the hospital?
We don't give it at the hospital.
The order to
Outside.
connect letters will be going out shortly. We'll let you guys know ahead of time. We're still waiting for Chatham to sign off on the final revisions before those get mailed out. But we've still been working on the administrative side, figuring out the permitting processing, getting all the envelopes stuffed. We're trying to figure out on our end right now how it's gonna work. We'll still receive all the applications, so it's gonna be a lot at once. The Cape Cod Municipal Health Group has kicked off their 6-week program for healthy eating, moving into the holidays, which is a great opportunity for employees. And that's it for my health director's report. I have more under the COVID report, but we'll touch that after.
Okay. Well, then we'll go back to the work session. COVID update.
For the COVID update, we are currently tracking 38 active cases, which is more than we had been tracking over the summer. We're definitely starting to see an increase. The average age of all the cases right now is currently 35 years old. The ages range from 2 to 86 years old, so it's not really one group that we're seeing, it's really across the board. Out of those, 18 are fully vaccinated, 20 are not. As I mentioned, the elementary school clinic will be coming up December 1st for kids 5 to 11. And we also have free COVID testing available for board members and staff. If anyone needs a rapid by-next test, call the health department. We always ask if you're symptomatic to stay outside, we'll come to you. If anyone wants one before the holidays, we're welcome to give you a free rapid test just for peace of mind. And that is my COVID update.
Yeah, there's a little increase in cases in the hospital, which is kind of scary.
So, I think everyone's moving back indoors.
What's the age group that's
Young,
young?
40s to 60s.
I'm mid-60s, so that's young.
In Harwich it is, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I figured the board had wanted to revisit the face mask covering during public meetings. At this point, I would recommend to keep it. You wouldn't need to take any action if you wanted to keep it.
Keep it till the end of the year, and then,
We can always address it.
yeah, keep it till the end of the year, and then we can go
I'm
to
gonna say
things.
into next year.
Yeah, that's fine.
With everybody's going indoors, we've got holidays coming up, we've got numbers coming up all over, and people are gonna be traveling. I just, you know, just for the committees and all, and the last couple of Board of Selectmen meetings have been full. So, I still would recommend the masks.
Oh, yeah, I
to
think
stay
we're
with
all, everybody in agreement with
Agree,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
No action would be needed.
Okay.
The animal regs, do you want to touch base?
Let me just, all right, I've been working on the piggeries, all right, and I went through looking at the other towns, all right, and they do have, where I'm running into some issues are the different setbacks, all right? And I looked through our zoning, and I have not really found anything that fits in there per se. So, and I did talk to Katie about it, that we could come up with, and I would use the different towns, you know, put those out, what we could pick, you know, a range between this and this for different ones. That we could, since we don't have anything in the zoning, we could put something down there as far as setbacks and things of that nature, which is one of the things I'm getting stuck on. So I'm going to try to put something like that in place and give it to you, and then, I don't know if you guys want to look at it in December when I'm not here, it's up to you.
Might as well look at it.
Yeah, you can look at it. So I hopefully have something to put in place, you guys can look at it and kick it around. One of the other issues that I'm struggling with is the difference between people that have pigs as pets and ones that are doing it commercially. So, you know, and I spoke to Katie about that as well, as that the state does regulate the commercial. Am I,
meat
all right, if I'm wrong, stop me. So that all we really need to do, and I think we ought to make it clear then, that we are addressing non-commercial.
So you still would be addressing the commercial, they regulate the meat side of it, so the vaccines, all that.
All right, that part of, yeah, all right, because that's where I was coming in, where if you're gonna, so we would only regulate, in other words, like the spacing, the zoning part of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it, I'd watch it with the zoning, because you're not technically the zoning, but the setbacks.
The
yes,
setbacks,
yes.
okay. As opposed to, like, as I was getting into the weeds, like I like to do, I was coming up with, you know, transporting, how many you can have, are they vaccinated, are they licensed, where did it come from, where are they going? And that's all being done by the state then.
The USDA still reviews any of the animal products for consumption.
So
Still has
my
that.
thought might be that somewhere in that, I guess we're gonna call them regulations, that we would state that, you know, we're gonna go with the setbacks, but I don't know, maybe list something that actually says that, you know, the other parts of these commercially run things are going to be regulated by the state, something to that effect, as opposed to the ones that are just going to have pets. Now, that doesn't exclude the fees that we were talking about, that we discussed the other time, which was 25 for 2 to 4, and then,
125.
was it 125 for greater than,
That's commercial though, right?
right, but we can have the fees for the commercial, and we can do the setbacks for the commercial. It's just all the other regs around commercial piggeries,
The consumption side.
yeah, then falls onto the state. So that we don't have to worry about making sure that somebody has a license for this and that they're vaccinated and that type of thing. So that's where I was getting hung up in looking at the regulations, and then a lot of the towns are very kind of sketchy, and I'm assuming for that same reason.
Yeah, the USDA still has to approve any
Yep.
meat that's gonna be consumed.
So
And that
I-
would be with the wholesale permit through the state.
So I'm going to start, now that I kind of know that I weeded out what I don't need to, you know, to look at, come up with something, and I'll give her a draft that she can, you know, put out for your next meeting in December.
What's the
And you
date?
can always refer it to input for some of the other boards too, for
Yeah.
comment. Once you kind of iron out some of what you want, we can refer it to planning or zoning,
Yeah.
any of the other boards for review as well.
All right,
Or even just the staff at those levels for comment.
okay.
Thank you for all the work.
Well, like I haven't done it yet, I just have a lot of data on it. Okay.
So we didn't include anything, on the sewer extension criteria in the packet. We had just mentioned at the previous meetings, just to keep it on as an agenda item if anyone had anything that they thought of, and
Okay.
if there's any.
Okay, so I had said I was going to talk to Dan Peltier about this, and I did bring this up to him, and then he said to me, what do you mean by extension? Because there's like all sorts of things. So I didn't want to say it, but we're only talking about time, all right? All right, that, I said I would get a hold of Dan in January, after the holidays, and I don't think the timing for an extension is going to be affected by anything that's in the agreement with Chatham. I don't think so. But I want to double check with him that it's not going to affect into the, I forget what we call that, the IMA with Chatham, on the time from when they have to hook up. So I'd like to get, you know, Dan's input on that, whether he has any thoughts on that, or, you know, what effect, can we just come up with what we want, what we feel?
So we can take that off for the December meeting and then revisit it in January.
In
if that
January, if I can,
works.
and I'll try to get with him earlier in January when I
Should
get
we
back.
have him come to the meeting?
That would be a good idea.
We could also have him come, yeah,
That'd be a great idea.
We
yes.
can definitely ask him to
Yeah.
come to the January
I
meeting.
think
Oh,
he'd
this
be more than willing
person,
to.
what's his name?
Dan Pelletier?
Oh, Dan, okay, so Dan Pelletier, he's in charge, how is this?
Dan is in charge of water, he's the wastewater and, water and wastewater superintendent.
Yes.
And so
That'd be great if he can come maybe in January.
and he's very, very knowledgeable, he's really good,
Yeah.
really good,
That would be very, very good.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we'll try to get him, we'll check his schedule. If he's
Yeah.
not available in January, maybe he can come in February.
Yeah.
Something like that, so we can listen to what he has to say, you know?
All right. So that's all I have on that piece.
So next would be the review of the 2022 Board of Health meeting schedule, which we have provided as a draft.
I did have that. I really have my things all out of order. Okay. Okay.
So is everyone okay with those dates as of right now? I mean, we can't change it after, but if you know of a date right now that won't work.
I don't have a clue. Fine, looks fine to me.
The only one, like I said, I'm looking at maybe for next year, I'm not sure what, but usually, if we go to Colorado for Christmas, that might be the only one that I couldn't do. But other than that, I don't have a problem.
Do we need a vote? So we'll just need a vote to accept the schedule as written.
Make a motion to accept.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. And then the last thing, so we provided copies of the violation notices for 47 North Road. That was the property that the water's been shut off at. We've issued quite a few violation notices, as you've seen in here. We've yet to receive payment, so we will be pursuing legal action at a certain point. But the water has been shut off.
And that's the one we were discussing before, and wasn't the the person that was going to be doing the sewering, wasn't he at the meeting?
That was a different one, I know, they all kind
Wow.
of blend together. It's three separate problem properties
Okay.
going on.
Okay, all right. Okay,
This is the one that they didn't install the tight tank in.
okay,
It transferred without
all right.
inspection, and then they've been here in front of the board a few times for the tight tank, and they just never installed it. It's right on the river. So
Okay.
they don't currently have water on now, and we are still pursuing the fee schedule.
Yeah, all right.
And we don't have any new permits for this evening to review.
Really?
That's it, that's all I have.
Okay. I make a motion that we close the meeting.
I'll
All in
second that.
favor? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Not too bad.
Sorry if I got a little windy in the beginning. I just